Hey guys, Professor Fun 101 here at PARACONOMY Inc. Welcome to the midnight here where it's 2:20, 4/10/2025, and we have all sorts of disclosure here. It looks like I found the hive mind that leads straight to the judge, which just so happened to have a just casual one-off on a coffee the day of Candela Sweet's first pre-trial to my framing and scapegoating, and as nonchalantly as they took it, I have figured out how they planned on moving forward with it at all. And it looks like that everybody's involved, including the LGBT community, having a sex co-op on some of the law enforcement and the teachers that are protecting the judges, and they're all in cahoots with the entire situation. So it spins off onto the people who ended up lying to squeeze a few dollars in, and they've got it so that the cops are listening, and they've heard me scream out my window. This woke everybody up in town, and nobody seems to want to open up and tell the truth as to how I got so crazy that like I started becoming a menace to the rest of society when all in truth that there are monitoring spiritual entities following me from behind my freaking skull and like all around my apartment in order to judge and dictate how they should feel and what they should do with it as they move forward. This has caused a lot of animosity on my end and frustration, clear abuse. And it's how everybody's going to end up having to look at the settlement on this fairy hypnosis that they've gang stalked me with because I've had to basically lay into a cop and a judge now metaphysically in order to get attention from the entire enigmatic spectrum that I just so happen to like occupy that is loud enough on the telepathic line for me to astral project some more visceral imagery that might be a little bit further away from this, maybe closer to the sexual energy that I've been giving off and more giving way to the actual violence that I'm capable of astral projecting at least. And it's the people who are finally getting theirs didn't realize that you could do that. And like some of them did, but some of them are just learning more about it. And it's here. And it's easier to be able to kind of squeeze through as somebody who is above all of these people on the low. Like I've astral projected behind certain paywalls and I've prayed for like it. So it's definitely been heightened as we go forward into from 2022 all the way into the all of this new esoterica and Magna Carta that's just it's mob law. It's a town that all knows each other, and they all pay each other to rub each other's toes. And so it's kind of this big scoochie poochie network of them laundering drug money and moving around decimals and all sorts of scammy, old-timey, snake oily cult-isms. And this is getting where basically occult magic in the town send for the town center by being able to recoil a little bit of a line of credit on snake oil on the judge and their bench that like springs kind of outward and down at the same time because they have recoil that naturally affects but like if you don't have the clearance, you wouldn't naturally be able to speculate that there's a whole amount of sensitive information like infidelity and like just illuminatic staging that gets the people that are in their positions of power to be able to just spin it the wrong way and then pay for the rest of it. And that's a huge part as how long discovery sticks and how long you can kind of run it. And so when you can come up with a case that weighs more than the bullshit that the judge and the bailiff are like basically running, on top of them knowing this court stenographer, and then like calling for action as a bloodthirsty, vicious killer versus a straight up like abuse, like kind of like person into like society, and then grasping at the comfort of money in the place of actually giving the truth light, and then having it show the weight in the decision making on how much money it'll actually cost in the amount of other crimes it's caused and the time that was lost on every crime after mine in order of operations. So, like, incongruency, if my court case caused down the line several other occurrences that were misjudged and it got people caught up, the system works backwards too, and it flushes all of that hard work those people were and stops it. So, democratically speaking, this reshifts the amount of gerrymandering that they look into incentivized crime. So if you're being mislabeled and you got another case, two or three or four, and they didn't look at it the right way, well, it's because they want you to understand that this is the play of power it pivots. It adds function to the mechanics of the system that's engineered to keep certain people around in certain ways. Now, the cop that was involved, he is involved with Candela, and they know each other, and apparently they've dated or something. And there's cops dating people who are jealous of me, and they don't care. And this is a huge part as to one big reason why they're being exposed here on civilian disclosure is because they're using the laws of esoterica and nerd and D&D knowledge and geek life over people's innocence, and they're streamlined on legacy. So if they're not being correctly represented in society, that it gets put on until it becomes the result in discovery. But as long as they can make money off of it, they'll hold you down. This is a big reason why they don't want to talk about their zombie magic or the KKK or other things that Michigan is kind of has their hands in that they are trying to keep around because it's what kept the economy going during lockdown. All those good white folks' money made the whole native casinos overflowed. It was the biggest pull in tourism for finances. And this is exactly why we need to hold the state accountable and not just the people involved that like catalyst the whole entire equation because I need to be comfort. I need to retire here. I'm in my mid 30s and I need to look at least if I'm going to start a family because I'm this smart and put together and magical that like somebody show some goddamn interest. Excuse my language here. But it just seems like a lot of just ill repute and disregard even by those so-called professionals that are meeting and casually like, "Oh, yeah, how's the kids?" And recoiling, back onto the hard, actual stoicism that we're occupying in displacement, because if it's engineered on consistency and you're just being incentivized by the mighty dollar to show off that amount of consistency, then it makes sense that what I've done is a bit of more philanthropic as than of something else. Um, uh, and that's kind of one big reason they might wanna press back on however old they defended this case as when I'm above this, bar here, and it brings it up as a dual state and native ambassador, so I have to take into effect that if they're spending a ton of the millage on back on its own to launder out native money, that it does involve my namesake, and I have to be able to call out the courts and the system that's clearly boogie woogie wooing on my social security being on the dark web, them seeing that I'm a displaced ghetto child, that like I am into thrifty art. They're like, that's good. It makes art culture, but they're going to kill me off and then take my ideas later as they it's it's a huge part of the system and how it's low key how I'm blowing up too. And because I'm wanted. I'm a wanted man. So like that's like a huge part of if the cop's white, if these kids are white, if this kid's Mexican, and they're like, you're just as good as the Mexican, and I'm not Mexican, but my last name looks Mexican. Doesn't make sense that white cop's gonna be like, well, you're probably from Imley City. There's so many Mexicans involved in this. I don't care. Who you know these people? Pay me. You need an attempted murder. It says it's murder. Oh, yep, yep. And you tried to just had to fight you, huh? And you were living there, right? And you were married, right? No. Oh, I had to tell him something. Oh, Cassie told me she lied. Okay, she told me she lied to the cop. You wanted me to just do this out of court? There's the truth, and this is the consequences of not allowing me to make my case to the judge, and the judge being like, "Here, what you do? You're here a second." And she's getting all hissy at me. And in the meantime, they all know each other, and they all ran a bag up on me, and they completely abused the system in order to prove me wrong about magic, break my family apart, evict me, starve me out, detransition me, cut me off from all of any of the underground colloquial art culture with music that I've brought in and or model agency that I was using as a scapegoat of professionalism without a license. So if that's all that they needed, I became ordained and I started a company protecting my rights and legacy here, thus forth, and it's going to be one big reason people don't forget how this all got put together because now I'm in both the Wanted Popular Club and the company popular club because I'm now a CEO and it helps to know that there's a lot of real palpable science that is being studied alongside the human genome at PARACONOMY Inc. and telepathic disclosure with a little astral projection therapy in order to get people to have a little more interaction here. It seems like there's a little more to this electromagnetic field and these crystals than what I gave it credit for, and there's a little more audio design and production than they're giving it credit for, and that we have to meet in the middle somewhere about how we talk about the rest of some of these case filings that realistically I could just sweep this under the rug like this. They won't care, and they'll just throw me in jail again because they're a bunch of power-hungry dickwads that have compulsory needs to fill a checkbox that, yes, we caught the criminal again. Give us the check, please. Here you go. And not having any like, wait, this kid's being stalked? Yeah, right. We're stalking him. But you're not actually talking about how much money it's costing you guys to stalk me with the amount of drama that I'll probably, unfortunately, have to desensitize people to, seeing as they're not respecting me or they're demeaning my safety. And it's very unhealthy, it's toxic. So, um, it's not hard for me to lowbrow, which involves some more um, gory imagery that I can astral project with people and with photorealistic memories that I keep in both my lucid dreams and my waking life, which is probably a huge reason why they're not ready to talk about it in court because they don't want to be responsible for two things: magic trans women. So forgive me, but that's what paraconomy is best at. We investigate the realism and all the angles that we can trace them round back through the legacy and lineage of both my and your existence here on this planet. So the more you expose yourself to the people around you, the more you'll find out maybe they don't all have the best interest or even the same roadmap. And that's why you have to be able to like check things, use discretion, and kind of listen and learn where you can. Um, realistically, I think people are trying to figure this out in their own time, in their own pace, and they're going to encourage all sorts of adversity. But in the end, I think people it will start. It'll show where it needs to, and everything that I've been saying about any of it is very prophetic, and that if you can predict that much of the future and maintain control of the now, you have plenty of room to feast. On that note, it's 2:37. I give you guys a little civilian disclosure here, April 10th, 2025. They're trying to evict me. So go like, share, subscribe. I'm Professor Fun in the Sun, and I'm on the run still. After 3 years of, they could have just swept up this probation, and well, they're just making it real weird now. So that's probably all they need to do is they want less weird, they pay me more money. They want more weird, they let naughty over nice vanquish the balance. Uh, or however my Jedi accompaniment would allow me to just give you the force here for Christmas, guys. It is 7:38.